RebelCon's been fantastic. I think that, while we're in classes with the guys most of the time during the week, one of the things we're able to do here is we're actually able to interact with them. And well, once you get to meet somebody in person, talk with them in person, the communication bandwidth increases. So this has been great. The people that I've met that are also trading, that I'm also in the Rebel pit with, and we are exchanging text messages back and forth, the camaraderie is just excellent. So I recommend anytime they have an in-person event, you got to come and attend.
Join us this December in Miami, Florida for Market Rebellion Live.
Bang!
I just can't wait to get started, for God's sakes.
Folks, here we are
Yeah.
in the middle of the Caribbean. Well, maybe not the middle, maybe right at the beginning of the Caribbean
Now,
on the boat.
I got a real question for you.
Let's hear it.
Why do some people call it Caribbean, and then there's other people who call it the Caribbean? And which one do you like to use?
I usually use Caribbean, Pete,
All right.
but Pirates of the Caribbean is what Johnny Depp and Disney prefer. So,
Right.
I don't know why we got to pay any attention to what those guys like, though.
I do like Johnny Depp, though. I love those movies, John. I thought those were fantastic. It made me really like him as an actor because he was damn good. That was a fun series. It was almost as fun as watching the divorce in court, but
Oh, I'm
thank
right
God
there
that
with you.
wasn't me.
Folks, here we are. What island is that behind us? It's Yacos? Eat tacos. Like eat tacos.
Like eat tacos?
And today's
Ghost.
episode sponsored by Medaya. Here in the Northern Caribbean. Anyway, Pete, we promised we wouldn't give people too much macro. Probably gave them enough of my how my day's been going so far. But don't forget, you can join us in Miami. You'd be on a boat like this in Miami, but you won't get a nice island like that in Miami. But you get almost everything else. December 8th through the 10th. Go to marketrebellion.com/Miami. All right, Pete, shall we get started with Macy's, symbol M, like Macy's. This one, actually, we're skipping right past the minute macro. Is that
I was going to
Pete?
say the macro minute turned into like a second.
That might have been overused even, that second, Pete. What do you think?
Hey, let me say one thing about the macro minute. I don't understand why Bullard can come out there, John, and say that we need to go to 5 to 7% when they don't know the data. I thought they were data dependent. So that seems to me to be a little bit irresponsible. That's all I got.
It's either A, irresponsible, or B, it is him just trying to talk tough, Pete, which you and I say all the time.
Yeah.
They always want to talk tough. They don't always want to act tough.
Right.
So if they really make a move like that in December, wow. If they didn't cut back from 75 basis points, I will be shocked. All right, that's your 1 minute macro. Now we hit Macy's. Reload the clock, Jared. Give us a minute 30. Bang. All right, Pete. They come out with earnings. Top and bottom line both beat. Apparently, they're one of the few stores that's seeing enough interest that they actually can say, you know what? We're rather optimistic. How about you, Pete?
They raised the forecast, John, and they talked about the strength in luxury goods. And why does that make a lot of sense right now when everybody says, well, we're trading down, we're doing this? They manage the inventories, but they also understand that people need to go back to work. And if they're going to go back to work, John, and you see it happening each and every day, Elon Musk is all over this topic. But when they go back to work, they've got to buy the products that they need. That's beauty and that's nicer clothes. They're no longer walking around like you and I in swim trunks and tank tops. These guys are going out for shirts, ties, all that kind of stuff. The luxury goods carried them through the quarter and being very, very responsible by keeping track of inventories. Macy's did an outstanding job this quarter.
Yep, no doubt about that, Pete. It was pretty much a big shocker to everybody, but I love the idea, and I love to see them trading up like this. All right. Nvidia, Pete, one of your favorite stocks to mock because so many losers claimed that they owned it on the way up, and on the way down, it just kind of disappeared. Nah, I don't own any of that. I got out of that a couple hundred points ago. What do you think now after Warren Buffett has put money into Taiwan Semi and so forth? What do you think, Pete, of Nvidia?
Well, I think it's really interesting, John. It got hammered pretty good. Then they came out with their earnings. The data center, that actually was up about 31%, but it was the gaming, John, that just got absolutely slammed 51%. It's a smaller number for them, but 51%, it says it all when you look at the total revenue, which is down about 17%. The interesting thing is, I've heard people today on television talking about this name. Now, what were they saying? They were saying, this multiple's pretty high. It's the lowest it's been, John. The multiple is about a 35 PE, price to earnings. That's where they are about right now. These are the same guys who loved it when it was a $300+ stock trading at an 80 times. So the confusion factor here is absolutely ridiculous. I don't really understand it. But that being said, great company. I think they're going to be able to manage through this thing. They are cutting back a little bit because, quite honestly, John, they had overproduced some of their chips, and they're trying to get into bigger, newer, faster chips. So with all that being said, I like this stock a lot. I like it down here at these levels, and that PE does not scare me at all at 35.
Yeah, I'm right with you, Pete. So I think that's 2 thumbs up then, right?
Yeah.
We're both saying at this level, we like Nvidia, even if Jim Cramer named his dog after the stock, because it has been a dog for a while. And that was the dog's name. That was actually his dog's name.
Oh, I know.
All right. Well, Pete, what about Baba? We've all seen, and you and I have talked about the Chinese stocks, in particular, Billy, Tencent, Baba, and so forth. What do you think here, Pete, on today's move? What do you make of today's move in Baba?
Well, the revenue growth was a little bit weak, John. It was up about 3%, but that's not what you expect out of a name like Baba. On the other hand, their earnings absolutely crushed it. They were $1.82 versus $1.58. So from that perspective, but the reason, and nobody's talked about this today, so you're going to hear from me. The reason this stock is up significantly today, call it 7 or 8%, the board approval of more share buybacks, John. They added $15 billion to their buyback. That's what made the stock hop to the upside. And oh, by the way, the other day we were talking about ETFs in China and how often we've been seeing some of the option flow. How about earlier this week, John, when they started buying all the Baba calls? 10,000 of those Baba calls. Giddy up, baby. Those doubled for me. I took off half today. I'm holding the rest of that half that I'd had. But that just shows you right now how fast these things can move, because those calls were out of the money by a long distance, and now they're not too far out of the money. But I'll tell you what, you got to take money off the table at times like this. Good trade.
Yep.
Baba delivered with that buyback.
Yep. And I want to say, Pete, that what you described there, not only that they were buying out of the money calls, but the fact that, somebody is tipping their hand for what they think is going to happen in the stock ahead of an earnings announcement like this. That is exactly what we like to follow, is that we see a bunch of calls or puts, calls bullish, puts bearish. We love following those trades. And I got to say, Pete, that's exactly what we got to do here. All right. Lastly, what about Bed, Bath, and Body Works or whatever? I don't think it's actually got the bed in there. It's just Bath and Body Works. But maybe our sponsor has sent us a little too many of this, Pete.
I think they did. We better get through this quick, Jared. Well, John, this stock is up 21%. They crushed the earnings, absolutely crushed the earnings. They beat the revenue, but the earnings were 40 cents. They were looking for 22 cents. Why is that, John? Well, they had expense management, inventories. Again, inventories being the key word here, because that's been the problem with some of those that have reported where they didn't keep track of the inventories as closely as they needed to, and that hurt them in terms of their earnings. The other thing is this, John, and nobody else is going to talk about this either. How about the loyalty program that these guys have at this company? Now, we all know about what those are, right? And so 21 million people are part of that program. Here's the key element. When they're part of that program, what are they going to do? They're probably going to buy more. That's exactly what they do. And they become a higher spender. So it's another good advantage for this company. I love what they're doing right now, John. I think they're doing an absolutely excellent job as far as the execution that they're doing right now. Bath and Body Works. It's not just candles. It's a little bit more than that. And that's why this stock is going higher.
I agree, Pete. And I think that, even though I sort of made fun of it by saying Bed, Bath, and Body Works, nonetheless, it is a real company with very solid earnings. And you are correct. Loyalty is a big deal, especially when people are going to use some of those loyalty points, Pete, to spend less on their Christmas gifts going forward. So I think we'll see more of that, not less of that, going forward. All right. As far as unusual activity, Pete, I actually have one for you. It's BX. I know this is one that you've liked for a long time, and it has performed like crazy. But now we see the 25th of November. So that's basically the day after Thanksgiving expiring, because Thanksgiving's next Thursday, a week from today. The day after that is when the options expire for this one, the Nov 25th expiring puts rather at the 90 strike. The stock's basically 91. So it's a bet that maybe these guys have a little exposure to some of the things that have been going on, whether it's crypto or real estate or whatever, Pete. And so for that reason, I'm citing these 2,590 puts. They weren't cheap. They paid $200 a piece for these puts because $2 is $200 because every option's for 100 shares of stock. So 2,500 of those, Pete, for $2 or $200, that's a lot of money spent. I'm in these, but I'll probably be quick next week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'll probably be out.
Well, I've got the same expiration cycle, but here I'm going to give you a little bit of backdrop here. We talk about China. We talk about the ETFs in China that have been just absolutely buying calls, and they've been right. Now, every once in a while, there's a little bit of a pullback. We had one earlier today, but then that's bounced back a lot as well. But it's not just those now, John. Then I talked about Bob a second ago. How about this one, Las Vegas Sands? Now, a lot of people would say, what are you talking about? What does that have to do with China? Macau, baby. That's where they make their money. Or money, as one of our friends would say. But
money. I like money.
Yeah. They bought 6,000 of the November 25th. So just as you were talking about, it's a week out. But those calls, the 45.5 calls, John, in Las Vegas Sands, 51 cents up to 54 cents. Looking for a pop there. We've seen a lot of option activity in a lot of names either connected to China or part of China. And the reason for that, well, reopening, the restrictions getting loosened and all that kind of conversation, that's what's driving, I think, this right now. And sooner or later, it will happen because we've seen a lot of starts and stops. But eventually, it seems to me, we're getting a lot closer. And that's why I think we're seeing some of this call buying today in Las Vegas Sands.
And I like it, Pete. I like Caesars as well. I know that's not a play in Macau, Pete, but I do like Caesars. A lot of exposure across the U.S. And you know what? If indeed people do cut back a little bit on the trips to Vegas, Pete, and instead they hit some of the local casinos, a lot of them are Boyd Gaming and Caesars related. So take a look at that. Obviously, the big Caesars Dome in New Orleans that used to be the Mercedes-Benz Dome. Yeah. Now it's the Caesars Dome. Yeah. With Larry David's friend, Pete. Let me tell you something, Larry. Let me tell you something.
Guys, this feels like John when he was at the Super Bowl last year, and he was doing we're going to jump to sports now. We're going to go to college football, and what's what makes this so exciting for me. The Pac-12 is finally relevant. They got 6 teams still in the top 23. We'll call it the top 25. But they got 6 teams there, right? Utah being number 10, USC being number 7. This is about USC for me right now. They got one loss all year, John. It was at Utah by 1 point, 43-42. It's the difference of a 2-point conversion, literally. So they've got a quarterback, by the way. Caleb Williams came from Oklahoma. A lot of different guys came from all over the place. Wide receiver they got. He was a Biletnikoff player at Pitt. You've got Travis Dye at running backs, got 9 touchdowns. The quarterback's only thrown for 3,000 yards, 31 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions, John. That's all. Not such a great year, actually. Lincoln Riley has turned this thing into a team that is absolutely on the cusp. The Pac-12 is not getting the credit they deserve, but as long as they keep winning, John, and here's what they've got left. UCLA this weekend, number 16 UCLA. SC should take them. After that, they've got Notre Dame. After that, they're probably going to be in the championship game, and it might be with Utah or whomever it is that they're going to line up across. If they win out, John, they're going to be in the college football playoff, and boy, do they deserve it. What do you think?
I agree, Pete, and I love that it might be a revenge rematch with Utah. Now, obviously, 2 things have to happen. Utah has to keep winning, and USC has to keep winning. But in all likelihood, they're both predicted to do that, Pete. So I love the matchup. If that's indeed the matchup that ends up happening in the Pac-12. And I think that's an exciting thing for college football. All right, what's your next one, Pete?
So the 2 biggest games of this week's NFL season, as we will call it, I guess. John, this is pretty interesting to me because I talked about the Jets yesterday, right? They're 6-3. They're playing the New England Patriots, who are 5-4. Here's the thing. The Jets lost to New England. They need to beat them this time. Last time, Zach Wilson threw 3 interceptions. He can't do that again. But, John, if they win and they move to 7-3, the Jets sure will be a really interesting team competing against the Dolphins and some of the best teams in the AFC. So that makes them that an absolute must-watch game. The second game is Tennessee against Green Bay, and here's why. Green Bay better win, John. I know they won last week, but, with a record of 4-6, and if they're at home and they lose to Tennessee, who's a 6-3 team, they lose to Tennessee, and all of a sudden they're 4-7. With the Vikings at an 8-1 team, John, and you look across the rest of the NFC and you see a lot of winning records, and you look at Green Bay, I don't even know if they could make the playoffs. Here's the big story, and here's the big story, I think, of that game. It comes down to King Henry. If King Henry plays anything like he's been doing, John, and he's playing up against a defense that cannot stop the run, this could be ugly for Green Bay. But those 2 games, do you like those 2 games? And if so, which teams do you like?
Well, I like King Henry, Pete. Like we said yesterday, the guy's a monster, 250-pound running back that runs a 4.5 and has an engine that doesn't know anything but top gear. I mean, that guy goes hard every single play. And he's healthier now than he's been. So I got to say, even though I like Green Bay, I don't think they beat Tennessee this weekend. And as far as some of the other games out there, I'm really excited for pro football, Pete, for the first time in a really long time, because, our buddy Chico, Ron Rivera, and that's not meant disparagingly, folks. That's a term of love because, again, he was our brother Paul's roommate at Cal, and that was his nickname when he was at Cal, Chico. So, save your hate for something else. I love him, and I love the way he got that team up for playing Philly and knocking them off the undefeateds, Pete. So I think the final weeks of the pro football season are really shaping up to be pretty special.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what was special, John. They go up there and they beat Philadelphia, and I got a lot of good friends with Philadelphia. I got a guy, Bob Boyd, one of my good friends, John, loves the Philadelphia teams in general. But when you saw Chico in the locker room at the end of that game, you could see exactly how much it meant for him when he was addressing the team and he was back down to tears and blah, 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 blah. It was absolutely awesome. And you can understand why the players love that guy, and they understand his passion for football. It's still there, and he wants to win, and daggone it, that team is winning. So it's making it a lot of fun this year.
I agree. Well, Pete, we just had a seaplane land just out in front of the boat here behind Fantasy Island behind me. I got Tattoo out there asking me, hey, come on, Johnny, you're going to come out on the island. Come on. So I'm about to go back out there, Pete. But for everybody else, thank you for joining us today, folks. We'll be back on Monday next week. Pete won't be here, but we'll have a surprise guest sitting into Pete's seat on Monday. It might be from back out here on the island if we don't leave, but otherwise it'll be one of us will be back here on Fantasy Island. Remember, folks, December 8th through 10th, you want to join us in Miami? Well, check out marketrebellion.com/Miami. That's marketrebellion.com/Miami. You can join us for 2 days of live trading. We've got Ryan Mastro, we've got Pete Najarian, we've got me, we've got AJ Monte, we've got Brian McCormick, so many of the great folks. And there's that little seaplane right over there, Pete.
And John, we got Gene Munster. We got Gene Munster decided. He said, you know what? I'm in Minnesota freezing my tail off. I got snow on the ground in November. I'm coming. So Gene Munster will be there too.
Bang. We'll see you, Gene, down in Miami. Check it out, folks. marketrebellion.com/Miami. I'm going in to cool off now, Pete. Bang.